Well, hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. I'm Jill Bloom, Group Publisher of Roofing Contractor, and welcome to our Best of Success podcast show. It is an honor to have with me two incredible individuals today. One that is no stranger to the roofing industry, Bill Collins, who is a building products consultant, but also the Director of National Accounts at Servco. And someone who I'm meeting for the first time and honored to have here is Hashi Sudler, who is a professor at Villanova. Thank you, both of you, so much for joining me.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us on.
So Hashi, let's start with you. Tell everybody, you're a professor at Villanova, but what's your specialty? What do you focus on?
Yes, I'm a professor at Villanova's College of Engineering, in particular the electrical engineering department. I teach in two areas. One is in cybersecurity, where I do cover ethical hacking. We cover malware. We cover forensics. We also cover behavioral analytics in the sense of there's behavior that goes behind an attacker. There's behavior that goes behind a victim. So we want to understand some of those psychological behaviors and motivations of both attackers and victims. I also teach blockchain technology, which also has security related elements to what drives the blockchain technology.
That's awesome. And Bill, the reason you're here is everyone has known in the past, you recently have gotten a master's in cybersecurity, correct?
Yes, thank you. Hashi is one of my professors.
I love it. This is awesome. Well, speaking of cybersecurity, I mean, it's such an important topic right now, and it's something that all business owners, especially contractors, are trying to deal with and figure out. Um, and Hashi, you just mentioned some importance about AI and what's happening with AI when it comes to cybersecurity. Can you tell us more? What does everybody need to know?
Absolutely. I think we all have seen the massive waves of AI coming through, and the advances seem to be happening almost on a monthly basis. But what does this mean in terms of uh, actual impacts to businesses? Well, we know that attackers will use various schemes to create phishing attacks, emails that look fairly authentic. They'll also create malware. And what AI is now giving attackers the ability to do is to create these more efficiently than ever. You do not need to be technical. You can simply use an AI program to try to generate a piece of malware for you by simply describing what you want it to do. And I think the ease of it is now commoditizing malware. It's making it very easy. So one has to be more careful than ever if you're a business to make sure you have antivirus tools, and also make sure if you're receiving emails, they may look authentic, but you need to make sure it's coming from a source that you know and trust, and that the email itself makes sense, that you have engaged with someone in business, and that email reflects some continuity to the business that you've been doing. If it's out of the blue, if you have no idea where it's coming from, do not click on anything in that email.
Yeah, it is. I see them all the time. It's fascinating how like you said, how authentic they can look. And Bill, you were just mentioning about a report that you just were reading.
Yes, yesterday Verizon came out with their annual data breach investigation report, and they said that still the number one way people hack in is by stealing credentials. Well, stealing credentials means that they've got your password or something, which always leads to what you and I've been talking about, which don't forget to change your passwords, make them complicated. Don't forget to change them fairly often, and also don't make them the same for every one of your, things you're logging into, because once they get those credentials, as Hashi says, they've got all sorts of devices that, they can spit out millions of attacks in seconds, just duplicating it. And so then there's the number two attack is the phishing attacks that Hashi already mentioned.
So, Bill, tell me, what are some of the biggest mistakes you've seen contractors have made over the last several years when it
Well, the
comes
biggest
to
mistake has been a failure to plan ahead for when your business is going to be breached. It's not a matter of if; it's a matter of when. So if you don't have a
Mhm.
plan in place, you're not going to know how to react, and you have to involve all sorts of pieces of your thinking, to have a plan. The second thing is a failure to update your various programs. I think most everybody knows second Tuesday of every month is Patch Tuesday for Microsoft, and if you don't update the programs, you're vulnerable, and the bad guys know where the vulnerabilities are, so you got to constantly update it. And then the third failure, and I have a client who saved himself because of this, is a failure to back up your information. Because once a bad guy gets in and they grab all your information, they can shut you down. But if you've got a complete backup, you can avoid their request for ransomware and just get yourself back in business. So uh, failure to plan ahead is a problem. Failure to update your programs periodically, and then a failure to back up it leaves you very vulnerable. So those are the three mistakes I've seen actually in the last year with real live customers.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. So, but so Bill, though, so what do you feel like? Um, well, I've got three questions that are going through my mind right now. But you said something about updating. So every Tuesday, well, I don't even know if I realized
Oh,
that. Every Tuesday,
okay.
what's
Well, first of all, most companies automatically update all their employees' computers, but sometimes people have their own personal computer. And the company's not updating it. So you can click on your computer and ask in the settings to update what programs need to be updated, and it'll go out and search and update. And it turns out Microsoft, the second Tuesday of every month, has got something called Patch Tuesday. They send out that's when they send out updates. So shortly after Patch Tuesday, you like to grab and see if you need anything, because the bad guys all know that when Microsoft says what they're patching on Patch Tuesday, that people who don't update, they know where all the vulnerabilities are. It's basically been advertised.
what do contractors need to know about insurance?
Well, their business interruption insurance may or may not cover cyber insurance. So there is separate cyber insurance, although it's very expensive unless you do all sorts of things in your planning that allows the insurer to think you're basically protected. So insurance is not a solution. It's just part of your planning. And it can be very complicated. If you need advice, you need to reach out to somebody who understands that field. I'm always happy to share that with anybody who needs, a reference. I'm not an expert, but I can tell you where the experts are.
Okay, well, yeah, which is great because you've brought Hashi into the mix here. So Hashi, what would you say are what are the top three things that all business owners need to do today that they can do quickly to protect themselves?
I think one of the most important things to do is to make sure you are employing some antivirus tools on your machines. If you have laptops, make sure you have those loaded with antivirus tools. Make sure your staff has those on their PCs. It's the easiest way to make sure any type of malicious software is being detected that will save you in the long term in terms of having infections on your machine. The other thing you want to do is to make sure that everyone is following good hygiene when it comes to your password management. And Bill's kind of referred to this in the past, but one of the easiest ways to get into someone's account is through credential stealing and also what's known as password stuffing. And this basically is to get, if they can guess your password once, typically people do repeat use of their passwords across many different accounts.
Yeah.
So what they'll simply do is just go to other accounts that they believe you're using, and they'll use those exact same credentials. So they only do need to compromise it once. They could potentially get into multiple accounts for you. So again, you want to have that habits and behaviors and what we call hygiene in terms of how you manage passwords. And I think the third thing you can do is really make sure any of your hardware that you're purchasing, whether it's for your business or for yourself personally that you may use during business, is well protected. And so you want to make sure the vendors that you're working with, the companies where you're buying this hardware from, have good security policies and protect their devices very well. The highest growth that we're seeing in cyber attacks actually is with IoT devices, Internet of Things, things that connect to the broader network. And pretty much every device is becoming an internet connected device. Now, this is great because we have a great connected world and we can do so many things with that. But as devices get smaller, their memory size is also getting smaller. So they tend not to have memory space to have a lot of antivirus software or other protection software. And so they, in general, are just more vulnerable than the typical computer that we would connect to the network.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. So let's talk about passwords for a minute.
Mhm.
So There's no doubt. I mean, like you said, most people use the same password across multiple platforms. How do you keep track? How do you recommend people keep track of their passwords? If you have
It's
to have
almost,
something different for each different, right? I mean,
it's almost impossible to do because the amount of passwords that any one person has moved from 20 passwords per person now to over 60 passwords per person, and that's on average. A
yeah,
power user who's using computers throughout the day is likely to have over 100 different accounts managing their banking, managing various other accounts that they need to log into, and it's almost impossible to have them to be different. Now, of course, that is the recommendation. Make sure they're different because if one compromises one, they can compromise your other accounts. So, how does one do that without forgetting these passwords?
yeah.
So, we do recommend people move to passphrases, and passphrases are longer than typical passwords, and they are small phrases. And I typically recommend having a variety of words that are completely unrelated. They may be very relatable to you. They have maybe some personal relationship, but it would be very difficult for individuals to the relationship words because they're just very different words. If you happen to be multilingual, use that to your advantage.
Hmm.
Actually, you can essentially have a password made up of uh, either the same word or related words, but they're in different languages. And of course, you're writing them in Roman characters. But to you, it makes perfect sense. But to another, it would be very hard to know which languages you're going to choose and how you're going to represent that. So there are ways in which you can really try to strengthen your passwords and keep them different. Use password lockers. Again, hard for people to remember them, so they tend to write them down. And that's another vulnerability if they put them on their cell
Like
phones or
like
oh,
like
you write them on a piece of
my
paper,
sticky note that's sitting here because I always forget that one.
and it's so painful
Are
to
you saying
forget
this is
them.
bad? This is bad?
It is bad. It is not recommended. Let's put it that way. It's a natural thing, and we certainly cover this in my behavioral analytics course. That is a natural behavior that people have as victims.
Right.
We are forced in this situation where it's hard for us to remember them all, so we do write them down or we use the same ones.
Well, sure. And I feel like I get nervous too using a service to keep my passwords. Because what if that gets hacked?
That is
Right.
right. Right.
So if when you say a locker, a password locker, is that what you mean? Like
That's
a
right.
third party?
It,
Okay.
it's a safe, and typically, yes, we do rely on companies like Microsoft to do password lockers or Google. These are fairly large companies, very strong security practices themselves. But you're all right. There are vulnerabilities even in that. There's nothing that makes Microsoft or Google or any other large company immune to cyber attacks. In fact, they do get hacked, and when that happens, it happens on a fairly large scale. What we are relying on is the technology that password lockers are based on. Lots of encryption, keeping these in highly encrypted, what we call, um, you know, SHA-256 and other very high encryption technologies that make it very hard to crack. But there's always that potential that someone could get into a large company, get to a password locker if they can get through all the security gates and try to crack some passwords.
Yeah. Right. And who knows if there's, what do you call it, a mole who's been hired by one of those companies that's all of a sudden get in there and help everyone get exposed. I don't know. We hope
That that
that doesn't.
you're right. I mean, that is also another concern that we always have is the insider. And we talk a lot about the potentials of insiders who have access to all of the information. They know the systems. Maybe they themselves are an administrator and they have access to the systems. And perhaps the relationship between that insider and the company goes south. There's maybe a souring of a relationship. And perhaps the person is dismissed from the company unceremoniously, and that person may want to take revenge. If the security is such that the person still has access after they've been dismissed from the company for a day, even for a few hours. They could use that window of time to try to get revenge on the company, or the person may still be an employee and simply do something malicious while they are still an active employee with active accounts.
Yeah. So when it comes to antivirus, is there any one that's better than another, or just make sure you're using something?
I would say certainly try to make sure you're using something. McAfee is regarded as one of the leaders in this particular space. So yes, if there's some McAfee software you can put on your desktops or your laptops, definitely do that.
And so if somebody has gotten hacked, what their website has been taken over. They can't get in, and someone's, asking for a ransom. What do they do?
I think in this particular case, if you are a business, and just keep it on the business side for a moment, it's very important for you to reach out to an authority, such as either the FBI or to local police authorities, to let them know that you do have a breach. Now, the FBI certainly works with companies all the time, understanding when they are being attacked, because these attacks can spread from just one company to many companies very easily. And you may be just the first indication of a massive campaign.
Mhm.
So the FBI, these things happen. Typically, companies don't like to reach out to authorities because, one, there's an issue of embarrassment, and that my company's been attacked. They worry that their customers will find out, and customers will abandon them fairly quickly, knowing that your company's been attacked, and maybe their accounts are being hacked. So there's a reticence for companies to reach out to authorities to let them know this is happening. Now, the FBI does keep that type of outreach anonymous. So be assured that even if you're reaching out, your information is not going to be spread to the general public. What unfortunately tends to happen is that companies stay silent for a very long time, maybe a month or two. And at some point, they have to disclose because the exposure is so large. And it's when they media and say this is what happened, people are very upset. Customers are upset. The general public is upset that they waited for 2 months or 3 months to say something. And that we certainly discourage companies from waiting so long, because this is certainly a blow to the customers. They feel double compromised, but it's also a win for the cyber attackers. They essentially are going around with anyone saying anything about their activities, and they're repeating the same actions for other companies. So I would say certainly reach out to authorities. If you have a cybersecurity company that you're working with, definitely let them know and get them fully involved. You want to do a forensics as to what happened. And typically in forensics, you want to do what we call a legal hold. So there should be no emails deleted. Everything needs to stay the same, because essentially your environment has become a crime scene. It's a cyber crime scene. And so lawyers will want to know, who sent what, when, and what attachments were in those mails. And so for legal perspective, it's very important that they get a clear understanding of what the current situation is.
Yeah, wow, that's deep. Well, Bill, there's no doubt you learned from the best here from Hashi, and you've been helping customers as well through some of these situations. Any other insight you'd like to add?
Well, the only other thing is, if you've been hacked, sometimes the hacker will wander around your databases collecting information for weeks or months. You won't even know you've been hacked until that hacker's got everything they want. Then they've got something to offer. I mean, to demand, because they've got all your stuff. So there are programs that track unusual behavior in your computers, so that you're not waiting 200 days to find out that all your information's been grabbed.
Yeah, well, really good insight. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. It is such an honor to have you here, and all the great information to share with all the business owners and contractors that are listening. If anybody has any questions, where's about cybersecurity, where's the first place they should go?
I think one of the things they should take a look at is OWASP. There is a website that really contains a lot of the vulnerabilities that are being identified by major companies, and they publish those vulnerabilities. And of course, that lets companies know that if you have a particular software that has a vulnerability, do an upgrade. And they'll also publish the version and patches that you need to upgrade to. So that's definitely something you should take a look at.
That's awesome. And Bill, if anybody has any questions for you, how do they reach out to you?
Well, they can just call you, right? You have my
Okay,
information, and
I
then I'll
do. I
more than
do.
happy to.
Okay.
And for anyone who's a contractor, I do pro bono work.
Oh, you're awesome. Yes. So, and if anybody has any questions for us, it is roofingcontractor.com, wconline.com, or roofingsupplypro.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for all our free content. Make sure you sign up for our free e-newsletters, follow us on our websites, also follow us on all our social media channels so you can stay up to date on all the great videos and interviews we're doing, like we are today with Hashi and with Bill. But most importantly, stay safe and healthy, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. Thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.